So a Khalil is someone who's a very close friend. And the ulama talk about this in multiple ways. They say the best relationship is the one that's initiated fi ta'atillah, is the one that's initiated in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it may be, in fact, that two people who have absolutely nothing else in common come together on the basis of their love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their passion for the deen. And that is the means by which not only they enter into Jannah, but by which they are envied by the prophets on the Day of Judgment. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that those who love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment have these manabir of nur, these pulpits of light. Everyone admires these pulpits of light. They're in the shade of Allah's throne. Why? Because friendship is precious and it was initiated only upon their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They came together on the basis of that love of Allah. They parted from one another on the basis of that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the best friendship. It is the friendship that we find Musa alayhi salam speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asking Allah for Harun alayhi salam. Harun was already his brother, but he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to appoint him to share the task with him. Ushdud bihi azri wa ashrikhu fi amri kay nusabbihaka kathiran wa nadhkuraka kathira innaka kunta bina basira. I'll strengthen my resolve. We'll strengthen each other's resolve, because sometimes when you have a righteous companion, when you have a righteous friend, and your own resolve starts to wither. Maybe you're not even recognizing it. That person pushes you and pushes you and pushes you. So we'll remember you frequently together. We'll pray to you frequently together. We'll carry this amana, this trust of religion together. Oh Allah, this da'wah together. So that is the most ideal relationship, and it's the beauty of the relationship of the Sahaba. What puts an Abu Bakr and an Ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with them, in the same room together? What puts Omar and Bilal, may Allah be pleased with them, in the same room together to become the best of friends? What puts these people in the same room together except for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that pursuit of Allah's pleasure? And so the best relationship is the one that's initiated for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and nourished with the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of Allah. The worst relationship is the one that's initiated in evil, right? And a bad relationship, and this is something that's very important, as Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah points out, something that started in evil rarely can be rectified to good. Started a relationship for the wrong reasons, it leads you to the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's rarely going to get better, right? Those are the relationships that you just have to move on from. Then there's something very insightful that he says. Most relationships that we have are either relationships that we didn't really choose. They're relationships of convenience or circumstance. So for example, friends, close friends, someone of the same age at some point, went to school with this person, we were here, we were there, communities came together. So they're relationships that were kind of forced upon us in a way, right? And especially family relationships. Or the second one, relationships on the basis of interest, okay? Not riba, interest as in, like-mindedness and things of that sort. Now the problem comes when your interests change and you want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if you put too much currency in the friendships that were on the basis of interest or the basis of whatever it may be, there's something that's been developed through these bonds at this point, it's hard to walk away from those friendships, or at least to moderate them. You don't find that when the Sahaba became Muslim, they went to all of their old friends and said, I'm not talking to you anymore, Assalamu alaikum, I've got to pursue Jannah now. Right? If anything, there was da'wah, calling people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there are relationships that even remained between some of the non-believers that were not hostile and some of the Muslims, the believers at the time, that even remained. Right? And at some point became relationships that were fruitful because they bore the fruit of Islam in those friendships and those families as well. But you start to try to make a change and you kind of feel shackled. Because I don't know how to start letting this go. I don't know how to start hanging out a little bit less. I don't know how to break the mold of culture. Peer pressure when you are younger, friendship when you're younger, the pressure that comes when you're younger, again, this isn't an age-specific discussion, is more about individual expectations and trends and cliques and the worry of being blamed. When you get older, right? It's also cliques and expectations, and it's like, I've got to do parties the way my friends do their parties. We've got to gather the way they gather. We've got to talk the way they talk, those types of things. But it's more of the fear of loneliness and, losing out on your friends. You don't go to school anymore and make friends the way that you typically make friends. Here's what happens though. What is consistent throughout is that the influence that your circles have on you is inevitable and not easily detectable. Every single person that you spend an extended amount of time with influences you, whether you like it or not, whether you deny it or not, and in ways that you can't even connect or detect, right? You start talking the same way sometimes. You start, making the same jokes. You start being able to predict what that person's going to say, and that person can predict what you're going to say to an extent. There is an influence. Your character starts to change. Your standards start to change. The things that you see as objectionable or not objectionable, praiseworthy or not praiseworthy, that all is going to impact you, whether you like it or not, whether you're 17 years old or whether you are 7 years old. Your group will rub off on you. And it's not about whether or not it will rub off on you. It's about the extent to which you let that rub off on you. Okay? And that's why there's a saying, as-sahibu sahib. A sahib, a companion, is a sahib, someone who drags you. Imma ila al-jannah wa imma ila al-nar. Either drags you to paradise or drags you to hellfire. Literally, the Prophet ﷺ said, you will be resurrected with the people that you love. The people you hang out with, are those the people you hope to be around on Yawm al-Qiyamah? Are those the people you hope to show up on the Day of Judgment standing with you, that you think will have the best chance of making an argument for you? Or are you going to say, oh God, I'm going to pretend I don't know this person? Who do you want around you on the Day of Judgment? That's who you should be around in this dunya. Who do you want around you on the Day of Judgment? Now the influence is subtle. And the Prophet ﷺ talks about these subtleties, right? Where the famous example of a person who sells musk, and if you don't purchase, a good friend is like a person who sells musk. Even if you don't purchase their product, their inventory, they're going to rub off on you. And you're going to smell good. Likewise, you have the opposite of that, an evil friend, a blacksmith, right? Just think about a smoker, right? No offense to the smokers here, but smoking is haram. All right, someone smokes cigarettes and you're around smoking. Secondhand smokers, the smoke gets on you, you start to smell nasty, right? Even if you did not smoke the cigarettes yourself, right? There's something that happens to you in the process of all of this, right? So here's what the Prophet ﷺ teaches us to make of all of that. And here's where we come to our ulama of how to make things of that. Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, أُحِبُّ الصَّالِحِينَ وَلَسْتُ مِنْهُمْ. I love the righteous, even though I don't really consider myself to be amongst them. Meaning, you know what? When I hang out with the ulama and I hang out with righteous people, I don't feel like I'm at their level. I feel like they're better than me. لَعَلِّي أَنْ أَنَالَ بِهِمْ شَفَاعَةً. Not only will I hope that their character will rub off on me, but I hope on the Day of Judgment I would have their intercession. وَأَكْرَهُ مَنْ تِجَارَتُهُ الْمَعَاصِي. And I hate the one who trades in evil. وَإِن كُنَّا سَوِيًّا فِي الْبِضَاعَةِ. Even if I feel like we have the same inventory.